testing body fat. Some misconceptions about it. Hey y'all. Alright, so I'm here today with a video about body fat testing. Something I see a lot. I have a lot of questions from clients about it, and seeing that I'm somebody who does a lot of body comp testing through my research, I thought it was a cool topic to go over and to kind of clear up any maybe misconceptions or questions that you might have about the topic, things that I think are more optimal tests and how you should actually look at your results. So first, what are the different body fat tests? There's a whole bunch, but the two biggest ones I would say for field testing are either calipers or the handheld BIA when you're like, you know, driving the little thing. No, I'm just kidding. You're just holding it in the gym. And so why do people use those? Because they're very easy and they're also very cheap in comparison to other things like a DEXA, which is like $100,000, right? So calipers can be very cheap. They're probably like 10 bucks for like the plastic ones. The good ones are about 300, which if you're somebody who is a trainer or you have an in-person kind of clientele, I would highly suggest getting them. The brand is LANGE. I don't want to pronounce that wrong. And they're really, really good, and $300, again, in comparison, is not that expensive. So you have those, which is usually done with a 3 or 7 site test. And then you also have, like I said, the BIA, which you just put your hands on and then you kind of put in some numbers and then it spits out the body fat percentage. The more in laboratory type testing would be the classic hydrostatic weighing, which you're in a big tank, you go to the bottom, you blow the air out, and then there's like a little thing, it looks like at the produce section, like the scale, it's always spinning around. So there's that. It's really only used in laboratory settings to my knowledge. I don't really think that they're not really many other places besides a research university or just a research lab. More popular nowadays is the DEXA and also the bod pod. I think a lot of people actually have like mobile units of that for testing. Just kind of like you get in a van and there's like a bod pod or something. Like again, I'm not really sure, but I know that they are popping up everywhere, and I've heard of like mobile DEXA things. So it's getting a little bit more traction, and it's simply because there's not really much skill involved. You enter some numbers once again, and it spits out the numbers. Now, the last thing would be an ultrasound device, and those range between like 2 and 10 grand, I think. The one that we have is actually really cool, and what I would recommend if you have, again, an in-person type of clientele that you find this would be helpful. It's portable because you have the ultrasound wand and then you put it on your computer as a software. Really awesome. Body Metrics is the brand that we use, and I really like it. You can do muscle thickness and you can also do body fat, of course. Oh, the last thing would be in the lab, you can also do BIA, and I believe it's either on your wrists, I think it's on your wrists, and then there's like electrodes on your wrists and on the top of your feet, and then you do the same idea of this, but just a little bit more, I think, reliable. And that's again in a laboratory type setting. So there's so many tests, what do you choose? Well, first, you want to choose what is convenient to you, right? If I say, oh, go do an underwater weighing and you have to drive 6 hours to find a university that has one, that's really unreasonable. And I wouldn't recommend it anyway, unless you're a swimmer, because I don't know anyone besides swimmers who would feel comfortable at the bottom of a tank breathing all your air out and sitting down there. Like, I would not be able to do it. So I would not recommend underwater weighing. If you've done it before and you're fine with it, then that's cool, but I certainly am not gonna be one of those people, so you don't have to go get that. If you find a mobile DEXA, great. If you find someone with an ultrasound, most likely you can find someone with calipers, right? So there's all these different tests, and I see it a lot kind of get posted around, and I really wanted to go over the most important things over all of them. You need to do it the same way every time. If you eat or drink, right, you're increasing your body weight, and all of these body fat percentages are based off of body weight. So if you are essentially gaining weight from eating and drinking, you are now increasing, and that's not immediately turning to body fat, right? So that's looked at as fat-free mass. So your fat-free mass is increasing as you are getting at a higher, if your fat-free mass is increasing at a higher body weight, but your body fat is the same amount, so your body fat percentage is going to look less. So you're skewing the results of a test, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, and it's not anybody's fault because nobody tells you. I actually got a DEXA, I think last year, and they didn't tell me this either, and it was for body fat reasons, it wasn't for the bone mineral density. And I just think it's crazy that you not telling people this. And I've seen it, like, oh, you know, going to eating breakfast and then going to get Medexa done, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, when I eat and drink, I gain weight. And you can literally drink water, gain weight, and that's going to show up as lean body mass and change your body fat percentage. So it's really important to do it fasted from food and from water. Try to do it around the same time. It's also really important to have the same person do your test. Now, if that's not important, if you're getting DEXA and someone's just kind of punching in the numbers, that of course doesn't matter. But if you're getting calipers, if you're getting ultrasound, and if you are getting, what would be another one? Hydrostatic weighing, because you kind of have to understand how the whole thing works. It's actually really scary, and not scary, but it's like, oh my god, it's really overwhelming when we did that in undergrad. But regardless, ultrasound and calipers, you really need somebody who's skilled, but you also need the same person, because everyone does it a little bit differently. And I don't care how good somebody is at it. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's about they do it a little bit differently. I might pinch 0.5 centimeter lower than someone else, but that could change the reading. So it's really important to have the same person do it. Anytime I've ever done my body fat testing, I've had Dr. Campbell do it in our lab with our machines. Same thing for going on 3 years now. And so the only reason that I like to talk about my testing results a lot is, one, we try to get data on this, so because he is a scientist, we do try to publish stuff like this. But more importantly, it's a gauge for me, because I know what I am stage lean on our machines. Again, whether that number is right or wrong doesn't matter. The number could say that I'm 200 pounds and 30% body fat, but if I'm shredded, then that's the comparison value, right? That's not what it says, obviously. But the actual number matters less than the actual change. So if I start here, I know that I have to get to about here in order to be ready. Same thing with weight. Your weight will change, your weight will fluctuate over time, but for the most part, it's a gauge. Again, if I stepped on the scale right now and I'm about 150 pounds and my scale said 200, but in, you know, a few weeks I'm down 10 pounds, and I'm 190, I'm still down 10 pounds, right? So if your body fat starts at 15 and you go down to 12, you know that you lost 3% body fat. So it's less about the actual number, the actual value, and it's more about the change over time. That's why we're really big on doing the same measurements, same people, same way, and I really can't stress this enough. And more people don't talk about this, and I don't think it's a malicious thing. I think they just don't know, or they just haven't done it enough. But if you want to make sure that everything is super reliable and you're not just like, oh, I'm at the gym, let me just try it, that's totally different. But if you're like, I'm going to track my progress this whole prep and I really want to see where I'm at, you need to do it the same way every single time. Now, what body fat tests do I think are most important? For the physique competitor, for somebody who's watching my videos, who's probably into all this, I don't think it matters. Nobody is on stage going, oh, you're 12% and not 11.5%. You're off. Nobody cares. Nobody cares how much you weigh. Nobody cares how big your waist is. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. Your body fat percentage. What's your RMR? Like, for me, it's good to track because I have all the resources and we can publish studies off of this. That's what we do in a research lab. Number doesn't matter. It's cool to be like, oh, I'm XYZ%. But at the end of the day, it's more of the relative change. So that is why we use ultrasound and we use calipers. I'm probably in the minority here, but I actually really like calipers, and here's the reason. All body fat percentages are based off of regression equations. So there's a lot of assumed variables in there, and you put all these things into this equation and then it spits out a percentage. What I like about the ultrasound and what I also like about the calipers is that I am measuring an area. 20, I know I just said 20, but whatever millimeters on my tricep, let's say it's 20. My triceps are 20 millimeters of fat thickness. I test that 4 weeks later and now they're 18. I'm looking at the raw value and I'm looking at how that changes. I can also look at site-specific things. 7-site test, that's what you use for the ultrasound and just for the skin, just for the skin folds too. We don't actually put the skin folds into a equation to find out the body fat percentage. We use it more as a gauge for the ultrasound to see if the machine's being weird. But let's just say we did, right? There's usually 7 sites. I'm going to trust a pinch or an ultrasound if you know how to use the machine a lot more than just a whole body test. And that's just my opinion. I disagree with a lot of people on this. That not everyone is on camp, this camp. And that's totally fine. That's why everyone has different opinions, right? But for me, and for the physique athlete, it doesn't necessarily matter. I think if you, let's take DEXA for example, right? If you are working in a research lab or you're studying people and you have 100 people, it makes a lot more sense with a lot less error to do a DEXA. It's really good for averages. I just don't think it's as appropriate for somebody who's as a top level athlete. And again, I don't need to be doing that, right? It's cool to kind of measure things all together, but if you're in that elite category, I think that the tests get kind of weird. So in that case, I like looking at just the raw data. I can look at the 7 sites, how they've changed. I can look at the sum, and I can see how that's changed. So all that's really important to me. More so than the actual percentage. I happen to know the percentage on our machine typically that I end up being at, just because again, I've done it for, this is my 3rd year now. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And if you don't have the resources like I do, then you're probably not going to be able to measure it as closely and for as long. So that is my ramble about body fat testing. Key points to take home. No matter what test you choose to do it fasted from food and water. Try to use the same person if you are, use the same person if you are doing calipers, ultrasound, or hydrostatic weighing. The other ones that are just, machine based, don't really need to worry about that. Try to do it around the same time. Theme here is consistency, right? And above all, no matter what method you choose, look at the absolute values. If you start at 20 or 30 or 5, doesn't matter, as long as you are changing and you're going in the direction that you choose, getting leaner or actually gaining body fat, depending on if you're at a very lean state and you're trying to gain weight. So those are the most important things. Do I think things like stepping on a scale and showing your body fat work? Probably not the most reliable, but again, if you wake up every single day and you do it the same, I'm so passionate about this, and you wake up and you do it the same way, same time, same everything, then again, it's a good value to kind of go off of. Even if the value is wrong, who cares if you dropped 4% body fat in 10 weeks? That's still exciting. Doesn't matter what the number is. Don't need to go around bragging that you're 5% body fat as a bikini competitor. And yes, I have seen that. And if that was actually true, you would 100% be in the wrong division because you do not need to be 5% body fat as a bikini competitor. Just a little heads up, everyone. I've also seen trainers try to manipulate body fat percentage. They find out that somebody ate off plan and then they're like, oh, I just tested your body fat and it's gone up so much. Come on, dude, no. So don't look at it that way. Look at the change over time. Do the same way, be consistent, and use it as another tool. Pictures are a tool, weight is a tool, measurements are a tool. All these things are important to tracking your progress. But at the end of the day, if you are stepping on stage as a physique athlete, nobody cares if you're 10%, 5%, 20%, 2%. It matters how you look, and that's my rant. Hopefully this was helpful, and next time you guys want to go get a body fat test, keep these tips in mind.